Structure of a flower that's pollinated by insects. This diagram shows the basic structure of a flowering plant that's pollinated by insects. As with all living things, the structure relates to the function. So, starting simple, we have the petals. Now the role of the petal is to attract the insect into the plant. So they're often brightly coloured and they're sometimes scented. At the base of the plant, you have the stem. You don't need to think of it in terms of it being called a peduncle. The stem is fine, and that is obviously there to support the flower. At the base of the petals, you have sepals, and these are small leaves. They're often green, but they can be different colours, that kind of support the petals and almost kind of hold them into shape. The whole kind of group of sepals is called the calyx, but really the important ones to remember from this little section are the petals, the sepals, and the stem. Moving on from the basic parts of the plant, we now need to start to look at the reproductive features of the plant, of the flower, and they are found in the centre here. All flowers have both male parts and female parts. If we look at the male parts to start with, we find that those are the stamen. I remember that it's the stamen because stamen contains the word men. The stamen is made up of two parts. The filament, which is the long part which holds the anther, which is the head that contains the pollen, and the pollen is the male reproductive cell. It's the kind of the plant equivalent of sperm, if you like. Once you've looked at the male reproductive organs, we then need to look at the female reproductive organs, and that's contained in this central section here. The first part that we look at, the whole thing, is called the carpel, and it's made up of 4 different sections. So the top part is the stigma, and that is where the pollen is left by the insect. It's often sticky to be able to catch the pollen from the insect. Next up we have the style, and that is a tube which supports the stigma and puts it at an appropriate height to be able to catch the pollen from the insect. Then we have the ovary, which, just like in a human, is where the eggs are found and is the female reproductive organ, and the ovule, which is the posh term for the egg. Okay, so in the whole flower, we've got the basic features of the petals, the sepals, and the stem, and they hold within them the male reproductive organs, the stamen, made up of the filament and the anther, and then the female reproductive organ, the whole thing is the carpel, and that's made up of the ovary containing the ovules, the style, and the stigma.